Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to have a very, very frank discussion today. It's about 2 or 3 days into Wuthering Waves 2.8, and I need to talk to all of you about this unit over here, Chisa, and the kind of odd situation surrounding her release when it comes to new and or newer players to the game. I'm talking about you individuals who have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 months of experience, or you started the other day because you liked how this character looked. And I'm here to talk about the fact that Chisa is, unfortunately, one of the biggest new player traps in the game. And I want to talk about why she's a trap, why she can cause some problems for your account and your progression if you're somebody that is a little bit younger in account age. And then I'm also going to talk about what you should do and how you can move forward to maximize her value if you are somebody that ended up pulling her when maybe you probably shouldn't have. Because there are other characters running in this version. There are other, mechanics, other things that newer players should be investing in if they do want to maximize their account's progression. Because, as we all know, in a game like Wuthering Waves, if you're somebody that's newer to the game, one thing you do want to do ASAP is things like the end game, right? Things like Tower of Adversity, things like Whimpering Waste, so you can get all of those juicy, time-limited rewards that can get you the pulls to, well, go ahead and get even more characters beyond Chisa. So that's what this video is supposed to be geared around. That's what this video's framing is going to be. We're here to get new players off on the right foot and explain why Chisa doesn't necessarily do that. So let's talk a little bit about this character. So I've got her fully built. I've had the opportunity to try her out in a bunch of different teams, and the one thing that I can comfortably say is that she is one of the most unnecessary characters, at least at this point in the game. Yes, she only works on about 3 teams, and she's the worst in slot option on 2 of those teams. Her only good team in the game is basically the Arrow Erosion team. The team where she is combined with, not this team, where she's combined with these 2 characters. These 2 characters are not on banner. And for her to actually have any use on your account, you basically need her, Cartithia, and it's really good to have Chicona. You can make a Cartithia team work with her by doing something like this, where it's like Arrow Rover, Chisa, Cartithia. So I'm going to say that like the main partner that she has is actually, well, acquiring and pulling her. The thing is that Cartithia is not on banner, and we don't know when Cartithia is going to be on banner again. And so if you don't have Cartithia and you pulled Chisa, you essentially don't really have a team for her to work in. Because, and this is just the reality of the situation, if you don't have Cartithia, but maybe you have something like Zani or Phoebe, guess what? A Verena is better on the team than Chisa. A Spectral Rover is better on the team than Chisa. And without a doubt, a Shorekeeper is better on the team than Chisa. And when Shorekeeper is available on the beginner banner, and potentially a lot of players have gotten her from that beginner banner that every player gets, I think it was after like Wuthering Waves 2.3 or something like that, then you're kind of just pulling this character to be a downgrade in every single team. However, there might be somebody that's out there and it's like, hey, it's saying I started in 2.4 and I have Cartithia, so Chisa must be a great pull, right? The answer is still no, because Chisa is the replacement for Arrow Rover, and Arrow Rover is a completely free unit, and she is about 5%, if not less, better than Arrow Rover in that Cartithia team with Chicona, and that's only if she has her signature. If she doesn't have her signature weapon too, then she's worse than Arrow Rover, the free character. She's worse than the free character in the only team that she works in and is a potential improvement in. That's really rough for a new account. That is kind of like a pull debt that you will have to take a while to recover from. You're pulling a unit that is not making any of your teams noticeably better. She's not creating a team of her own, because to kind of like create a team, you need a DPS that drives it and then support characters that support that DPS that's driving it. Chisa's not one of those characters, but do you know who is? I will show you who is one of those characters. And this is why I'm just saying that this Chisa banner is such a bait for new players, because there's a way better option that's coming out in the second phase, right? if you're a newer player to this game, you should be pulling Frolova, because she is without a doubt one of the top DPS characters that is usable in some of the most budget-friendly teams in the game, where you put her on a team with, you take this Frolova unit, right? And you put her on a team, you get her surrounded by a Havoc Rover. She works. You put in Dan Jin as well. Works too. Maybe you want to spice it up and put in a Shorekeeper for some healing. That works as well. She clears with all of these different lineups, with all these different teams, and then still has Giga, best in slot options to even further improve her performance as time goes on. This unit is kind of like a powerhouse. That's one of the strongest tools that any beginner can have, because Frolova is also the best character for one of the endgame modes. Whimpering Waste. She's the best Whimpering Waste character in the game, and she's one of the best TOA characters. And I rate her as the best unit overall in the game because of how well she exceeds in both of the endgame modes that give the most Astrite in the game. What better tool for a new player to have, especially compared to this unit, where I've already described to you everything that's holding her back. Anybody newer to the game, you should be spending your pulls here, and not anywhere close to this banner. If progression, getting rewards, clearing the end game, basically beating the game is your main focus, she is not going to help progress that goal very much at all. However, if you're somebody that just, wants to pull for the waifus, you don't care about Astrites, which I think is like a little bit of a, it's a bit of a crossroads, right? Where it's like, well, if you care about the end game, you get the Astrites to pull for the characters. But if you don't care about the end game at all, you don't care about the end game rewards, then yeah, go ahead, pull whoever you want. Just keep in mind that Chisa is not doing anything to further those goals on your account. But that's in the present. And the argument that's being made by a lot of Chisa pullers right now is that she's going to be a future investment. That she's going to be somebody that you got to look forward to in the future, and that her value is going to rise. I think that, without a doubt, is going to take place. Right? You look at this unit, you see what her kit provides, you're seeing things, right? Like general, all attribute damage bonuses, so she works with every single attribute. And then you're also seeing things, right? Like her increasing debuff stack limits and all of that. She's going to be the Shorekeeper of negative statuses, right? Everyone's beginning to see that. She's meant to be high value in the future. But nobody knows who is coming up in 3.0. Nobody knows what the upcoming characters even do. And so let's just hypothetically say you pulled this unit, and then no negative status character is out in 3.0, and so she's still bad for another 30-something days, when you could have just pulled a different unit in that time frame, gotten value out of her, and then gotten her on a rerun. That's the part that's really tricky about this unit, is that because she's in the first phase, this is my advice. If you pulled her, you kind of have to look at leaks to know whether or not she's actually going to be useful. Because of the way that her banner is designed, the live stream for this game, at minimum, is going to happen. The live stream for 3.0 and information about the new characters can reasonably only happen within 12 days of the version going live. The version goes live on the 25th of December, right? We look at some of the past live streams. Look, this one's on August 16th for Wuthering Waves 2.6. The patch launched on August 28th, 12 days afterwards. 2.7, right? Stream on the 26th, and then it launched on the 9th, about 12 days later. And then for God forbid, for 2.8, the patch launched 6 days after the 2.8 update, or after the 2.8 live stream. So the 3.0 live stream is likely going to happen at most 12 to 13 days before the live stream, and at worst 6 days after the live stream. And think about it this way. Unless you look at leaks, you will not know who's coming up in 3.0 when this unit's banner ends. And so if you're pulling on her, right, with the intention of building out more negative status teams, you'll pull her, and then if you don't look at leaks, you don't even know who the 3.0 characters are after her banner ends, or until after her banner ends. And so if there aren't any negative status characters, then you just got fucked. But what if you're somebody that thought there was not going to be any negative status characters, and so you didn't pull her, but then a shit ton of negative status characters rerun or come back in 3.0? I am personally of the opinion that unless Kuro shows information on the new units coming out and the reruns before this banner ends, if you have this character or you're thinking about pulling this character, I genuinely think you kind of have to look at leaks. Otherwise, you're running on pure cope or just speculation with up to 180 pulls, right? Or sorry, 160 pulls, 150 pulls on the banners. And so the end result is that level of speculation, that level of risk, that level of like uncertainty with how much value the unit is going to have, that's another thing that new players should be trying their best to avoid. That's another like disaster. That's another potential disaster that a new player, somebody that's again on the path to try to clear the end game, this is something that you really shouldn't be having to worry so much about, because there's already a lot of things for you to juggle as a newer player. Her potential synergy with unreleased characters kits, because right now she's only usable on one team in the game. She desperately needs more teams for her to be useful. And if we get new teams in 3.0, that's amazing. But what if they're delayed until 3.1 or they're delayed until 3.2, right? What if we end up with, and God forbid, a Chang Li situation, guys? You guys remember the Chang Li situation where she was released in version 1.1. This is Chang Li's outro skill.
Your call.
Chang Li was released in version 1.1 of the game, the first patch, with this outro skill that buffs fusion characters and buffs liberation damage. Do you want to know who the character this outro skill is made for? Lupa. Chang Li was released in 1.1, and the recipient of her outro skill was released in 2.4. That is around a year that Chang Li had to wait to get the recipient, get the teammate that can use her outro skill. I am not saying that that is what's going to happen to Chisa, but there's already a precedent where a character comes out and then they don't have that partner or that other unit that they synergize with, and they don't come out for a long damn time. I don't think that's going to be the case for her, but I could see the partnerships being delayed a version or two. And so do you want to spend your guarantee? Do you want to spend 80 pulls, maybe 100 plus, on a unit where you have no idea if there'll be any use at all in your account within the, like, because she's not useful right now. You know her value is literally below sea level right now. Pulling her right now makes your account worse. That's like a fact. It literally like makes your account worse for you to pull her right now. Does she become better in 3.0? And that's why I'm not going to say that any new player gets anywhere close to this unit. The only people that should be pulling this unit are those that are comfortably clearing Tower Adversity and Whimpering Waste with multiple teams. And if you're not at that point and you're still trying to build your roster and you're still struggling to clear, avoid this unit like the plague. Because there are plenty of well-established teams. There are plenty of well-established mechanics. There are way more general units that you can pull instead to build out your roster. Save for somebody else. And if you need somebody to save for, well, you know exactly where to go, because it's just in the next half of the version. And so if there are any new players out there and this video was able to convince you, don't pull this unit and instead pull this unit, hopefully you'll take the advice from somebody that's had the opportunity to test out in depth pretty much every single character in the game. And I can say without a doubt, you won't regret this decision, but there's a very, very high chance you will regret this decision. And if you're already at the point where you've made this decision, I think you know what you need to do. And again, I don't like condoning that sort of behavior, but the release performance of this character is so bad in 2 out of the 3 negative status teams. The performance of this character is so awful. In something like a Spectral Frazzle team, I'm gonna be honest, you kind of have to put in the extra effort. You kind of have to use those other channels to find any hope at all for her future. Because when she's made for negative status teams, and she's a downgrade in 2 out of the 3 negative status teams in the game on her release, I'm not gonna lie, that is one of the worst things that can happen to a new player's account, is having her on it, when that's the reality of her strength. I know I mentioned Cartithia isn't on banner, but some people might be saying, oh, well, Saint, they could just pull Phoebe too, and they could use Phoebe and then partner her up with Chisa. Wouldn't that be fine? Well, the issue with doing that is, unfortunately, when it comes to Phoebe and her teams with Spectral Rover, It's actually better to put in Varina or Shorekeeper in this team. It will do more damage. Literally. And the second part is that you're essentially saying that you're going to use Phoebe as a main DPS, right? If you're deciding to pull her to work with Chisa and you're not pulling Zani. Phoebe is one of the worst Wuthering Waves characters in the game, unless you go ahead, and that's one of the endgame modes, unless you pull a Chakona. So it's kind of like, it just ends up being like a circle at this point, right? You end up just needing more and more of these resources. You end up needing kind of like more and more of these 5 stars to make these other 5 stars work. And the end result is, once again, this is for newer players. Hopefully you can kind of see how this web of like limited 5 stars, where some of them aren't on banner, like her, are needed to make some of the other ones work. And those are the only ones that are available right now. Because once again, that's based off of Phoebe and Chisa being the characters on banner right now. And all this is really telling you, right, is that this is one of the worst phases possible for any new player to be investing any pulls in. Wait until phase 2. So yeah, hopefully this video, hopefully this breakdown, once again, I'm not trying to doom post over here. I think I'm just stating facts. Because the reality is that if you are that newer player and you pull her and you're already still trying to build out teams, this unit will do nothing for you and could honestly lead to a lot of individuals maybe even quitting the game because they think they break their account. And I'm not gonna lie, if you miss a bunch of TOA resets, a bunch of Weewa resets because you thought this unit was going to be helpful, and then you could have pulled for Lova instead and gotten, I don't know, like 50 more pulls within the version, then yeah, maybe that is bricked. I don't think a lot of people would be happy for that situation. So wait for the rerun. Wait for this unit's partners to come out first. See what the updated take is on her meta relevance, because right now, she's not relevant at all. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.